I gave 10 years of my life to Ao. My entire 20s, really. 10 years of lifting him from the bed to the chair, steaming his clothes, adjusting his pillows so he wouldn't develop bed sores. 10 years of waking up before dawn for hospital runs, spoon-feeding him umla and abono, changing his adult diapers with patience, and bathing him like a child. 10 years of sitting through his physiotherapy sessions, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, smiling through exhaustion, and believing that love, true love, meant sacrifice. That morning, I arrived early at St. Raphael's Specialist Hospital in Yaba with a small bag of banana muffins wrapped in foil. I had baked them myself before sunrise. They were his favorite, soft, sweet, warm, just like I had tried to be. I was walking to the courtyard that led to the rehabilitation wing when I heard his voice. Ao was outside, chatting with another patient. I smiled. It was rare to hear him laugh since the accident. Then I heard it. "She's basically a free house girl," he said, chuckling. "No salary, no nagging, and she still gets everything done. I'm not stupid, I beg. I locked her in early. She cooks, cleans, takes care of my drugs, even pays bills sometimes. That's not a wife. That's a full package of free." He laughed again. I didn't move. I couldn't. Welcome to Moonlit Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe, and join the circle. Every story begins with you. I stood behind a large hibiscus plant, my heart thudding against my ribs, the muffins growing cold in my hand. For a moment, I thought I had heard wrong, but I hadn't. It was his voice. That deep, familiar tone that once called me my miracle now reduced me to nothing but unpaid labor. I should have walked away. Instead, I stayed there, stuck in place, listening to every insult dressed up as casual conversation. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was staff. I was background noise. Eventually, I turned and walked slowly to his room. He was already back inside, reclining on his bed like a king. He looked up and grinned. "Amaka, you brought the muffins?" I didn't respond. I just placed them gently on the side table and walked over to the window. "You shouldn't wear yourself out, babe," he added. I was telling the guy downstairs, my girl is loyal, reliable, always useful. Useful, obedient, not loved. That night, I didn't return to the hospital. I let the nurses handle it. I curled up alone on the couch at home, surrounded by shadows in a house that was never truly mine. That day, something inside me cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet shift. The kind of shift that signals the beginning of the end. He thought he had a house girl, but what he really had was a woman waking up. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, curled into the corner of the living room couch, staring at nothing. The shadows felt familiar, almost comforting. This house had never truly been mine. It belonged to Ao and his late wife, before she died of complications 10 years ago. Her pictures were still on the walls. Her favorite curtains still hung in the dining area. Every corner carried her scent, her choices, her memory. When Ao and I got married, I offered to look for a new place, a fresh start, somewhere that reflected us. But he waved the idea away. "Say he grew up here," he said. "It wouldn't feel right moving him." Say, his son from a previous marriage, was already 17 then, tall, proud, and cold as stone. From the first day I moved in with my 2 suitcases and a secondhand bookshelf, Say made it clear I was an outsider. He never called me Amaka, not even auntie, just silence or her. He barely looked me in the eye, never touched the food I made, and rolled his eyes any time I tried to make conversation. Once, on our first wedding anniversary, I cooked jollof rice pepper soup and baked meat pie from scratch. Hours of sweating in the kitchen. Say walked in, sniffed the air, and muttered, "Smells like buka food," then went straight to the TV room. I laughed it off then. Told myself kindness would win him over. Told myself love was patient, that it endured, that it waited. But as time passed, the patience began to feel like punishment. After Ao's accident, when the car crash left him paralyzed from the chest down, I stayed. I stayed because I thought love meant not running away when it got hard. I took care of everything. converted the guest room downstairs into a bedroom, installed rails in the bathroom, researched wheelchair vans, handled hospital paperwork, even managed funeral arrangements when his mother died. And through it all, not once did anyone ask how I was doing. Not say, not AO. To them, I was a helper, the shadow that kept things moving, the unpaid nurse, the unpaid cook, the unpaid therapist, the unpaid wife. Now, sitting on the couch with the silence screaming around me, I realized something. I had been loyal to a house that never opened its doors for me, and somehow I was still knocking. The next morning, I woke early out of habit. My body was trained like that, automatic, obedient. I fried eggs, boiled yam, and made tea the way AO liked it. No sugar, just a splash of milk. By noon, the nurses had wheeled him out of the hospital and into the back seat of our old Toyota. I fastened his seatbelt as always. Steady fingers, silent lips. Ah, home sweet home, he murmured, looking around like a returning king. Finally, I can sit on my own couch and watch real TV. Hospital TV is always on news and useless cooking shows. I nodded faintly. When we got inside, I helped him onto the sofa, placed a throw pillow behind his back, turned on the standing fan, and fetched him water. He didn't say thank you, just took the cup, gulped, and reached for the remote. I tried to pretend, tried to be who I was before, but the words I had overheard in the courtyard kept circling my mind like stubborn flies. She's basically a free house girl. That evening, after cleaning the kitchen, I found myself going to the drawer where we kept important papers. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just following a feeling. Receipts, bills, insurance papers, prescriptions, all stacked neatly. Then I saw it. A single sheet tucked behind a manila envelope. AO's life insurance declaration form. Primary beneficiary, Say Johnson. Secondary beneficiary, Alexis B. Johnson. There was no mention of me, not even as a backup. I stood there for several minutes, the paper trembling in my hands. I wasn't surprised, not really, but it still stung. 10 years of love, sweat, sacrifice, and not a single line to say I mattered. I never asked for money. I never expected reward. But a gesture, just one gesture to say, "You count," would have been enough. Instead, I was air, silent, invisible. That night, I made lasagna his favorite, but I used spinach and ricotta instead of mozzarella. AO took one bite and frowned. "Where's the mozzarella? You know I don't like it this way." I didn't have time. I replied flatly. He paused, looked at me, suspicious. "You've been acting strange lately." "Maybe I'm just finally seeing clearly," I said. He blinked but said nothing. For the first time in 10 years, I sat across from him and didn't feel love. I felt empty. I wasn't in a marriage anymore. I was working a job I never applied for, and I was done. The next day, I didn't make breakfast. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge door where an old photo of AO and me clung to a faded magnet. It was from a trip we took to Aranigesha waterfalls before the accident. I was smiling, holding his hand. But even in that photo, I noticed it now. I was the one leaning in. He stood stiff, barely touching me. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in 2 years. "Hello." "Gee, it's me," I whispered. There was a short silence. Then her voice softened. "Amaka, you okay? Do you have a minute?" "I have the whole day." "Where are you?" "Come." I didn't pack anything. Just grabbed my purse and keys and left without a word. Kayamika's flower shop Petals in Bloom was tucked on a quiet street in a New Goose GRA. I hadn't been back there since I got married. She was outside in her apron, watering yellow roses when I arrived. The moment she saw me, she dropped the hose and wrapped her arms around me without saying a word. We didn't talk until we were seated in the back patio, a tray of ginger mint tea between us, surrounded by potted sunflowers and birdsong. "You look like someone who's been holding in a scream for years," she said. I nodded. Then the dam broke. I told her everything. The hospital, the courtyard conversation, the life insurance paper, Say's coldness, the way the house never felt like mine, how I was tired of being the background to everyone else's story. She listened, no interruptions, just silent, steady presence. When I finished, she leaned back and said plainly, "Amaka, you weren't in a marriage. You were in a contract. You managed a patient. You don't owe anybody your life just because they needed your hands." I stared at the teacup in front of me. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was freeing. "I'm only 30, I murmured, "but I feel like I've lived twice that." "Then it's time to live for yourself," Amaka said. "You want to crash here for a while?" I nodded slowly. That night, I slept in her guest room with sunflower wallpaper and an old ticking ceiling fan. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't dream of AO. I dreamed of peace. The morning light streamed through Amaka's guest room window, soft and gold. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the distant chirp of birds and the gentle hum of the flower shop below. For once, my chest wasn't heavy. There was no wheelchair to push, no medication to arrange, no breakfast tray to prepare. Just me. Later that day, over hibiscus tea, Amaka placed a file in front of me. "There's a female-led legal firm in town, Okeke and Company. They help women like you. I've already booked an appointment for this afternoon." I hesitated. "Gee, I don't want revenge." "It's not about revenge," she replied. "It's about recognition. You gave 10 years of your life. Let the law acknowledge that." That afternoon, I walked into Barrister Ifeoma Okeke's office. She was in her 40s, wearing encore print trousers and a crisp white blouse. Her presence was calm but sharp, like a woman who had seen many storms and outlasted them all. She flipped through my documents, marriage certificate, medical bills, utility payments, even receipts from Say's tuition I had once quietly paid when AO was between jobs. "You contributed emotionally, physically, and financially," she said, pausing. "That matters in court. Nigerian law recognizes spousal support and equitable settlement, especially in long-term marriages where one partner sacrificed career or income to support the other." "But the house is in his name," I said, "and I haven't earned a steady salary in 3 years." "Doesn't matter," she replied. "You're not a visitor, Amaka. You're a wife, a partner, a full-time caregiver. The law doesn't ignore that anymore, and neither should you." Her words settled in my chest like cement. Before leaving her office, she smiled gently and said, "This isn't about money. It's about showing the court and yourself that your life, your labor, and your love had value." That night, I stood by the flower shop's window, watching the wind sway a cluster of lavender. For the first time in years, I wasn't asking permission to take up space. I had spent 10 years invisible, unpaid, and unacknowledged. Now the law would see me. And more importantly, so would I. Back at AO's house, things were beginning to shift. Even without me there, he started sending polite texts. "Hey, you good? Let me know if you're passing by to pick anything." Then came the guilt-laced ones. "You can't just leave like that, Amaka. What will people say?" And finally, the angry ones. "You're throwing everything away over one misunderstanding. You're being emotional." I didn't reply to any of them. I let silence do the talking. Then one evening, Amaka came upstairs holding her phone. "You may want to see this," she said, handing it to me. It was a social media post from Say. "People always want pity for their choices. My dad isn't wicked just because he didn't turn over his life to someone who knew what she signed up for. Y'all love drama." I didn't finish reading. I simply closed the app and deleted it. This wasn't about public opinion. It never was. I had already begun writing a different story. Barrister Ifeoma moved swiftly. Within a week, she filed a request for full financial disclosures from AO's accounts. Insurance, pension, even property records. That was when something caught her attention. A 20 million Nigerian nairas transfer to Say's account just 2 months before I left. She flagged it instantly. "This looks like an attempt to hide marital assets," she said. "We'll challenge it in court." It was the first time I saw the power of the law move in my favor. Meanwhile, I called my cousin Gozi in Abuja, a financial advisor and the family's fixer. The moment she heard my voice, she sighed. "It's time, isn't it?" I nodded into phone. "It really is." Ngozi connected me with a female-owned firm that helped me open my own bank account, assess shared assets, and map out a realistic plan for life after AO. She also introduced me to a virtual support group, Second Sunrise, for women recovering from manipulative marriages and emotional servitude. Our first Zoom call brought tears to my eyes. 3 other women, all under 40, all with stories that echoed mine. One had cared for a stroke-stricken husband for 9 years. Another had supported her partner through medical school, only to be discarded after graduation. We laughed, we cried, and for the first time, I didn't feel stupid for loving the wrong person. I felt strong for choosing to love myself now. The morning of a hearing, I dressed simply, navy trousers, a cream blouse, and flats. No makeup, no jewelry. I didn't need power from appearance. I needed power from truth. Amaka made me a light breakfast, steel-cut oats with honey and a cup of zobo. You ready? She asked, eyes searching mine. I've never been more ready, I replied. Ngozi picked me up in front of the shop in her gray trouser suit, her posture straight, her voice calm. As we entered the courtroom in Acadia, everything slowed down. It wasn't fear I felt. It was focus. AO was wielded by Say. He looked smaller than I remembered, his skin dull, his shoulders slouched. His eyes flicked toward me once, then quickly away. Barrister Ifeoma began with quiet precision. She laid out every detail. 10 years of unpaid caregiving, financial contributions, emotional labor, and the attempted concealment of assets. She presented receipts for my purchases, hospital invoices in my name, and doctor's reports showing stress-related migraines. She even submitted Say's social media post as evidence of the family's disregard. But when she revealed the 20 million Nigerian nairas transfer, the courtroom fell silent. The judge raised an eyebrow. AO's lawyer fumbled through excuses, saying I had voluntarily taken on a caregiving role and should not expect compensation for love. Barrister Ifeoma didn't flinch. My client isn't asking for payback for love, she said. She's asking for recognition of her labor, her sacrifices, and the years of her life that went unnoticed. That's not revenge. That's justice. Then it was my turn. The judge looked at me and asked gently, Mrs. AO, do you believe this marriage was built on mutual care and dignity? I didn't blink. No, Your Honor. I believe I was expected to give everything and was given nothing in return. That was all. 2 days later, the ruling came in. I was awarded 310% of our shared marital assets, including a portion of AO's pension fund. The 20 million Nigerian nairas transfer was reversed. I was also granted 210 Nigerian naira 0,000 monthly spousal support for 18 months. There was no applause, no music, just a slow, steady exhale. Not victory, not revenge, just freedom. That evening, Amaka and I sat on her flower shop's back patio under warm yellow lanterns. She handed me a glass of apple cider. To new beginnings, she said, and for the first time in years, I clinked glasses without fear. 3 days after the court ruling, just as Amaka was locking up her flower shop for the day, Say walked in. No knock, no greeting. He slammed his palm on the counter hard enough to shake the small display vase beside it. So you're proud of yourself now, ABI? He spat. You got your little payout. Took food out of my dad's mouth. I looked up slowly from where I was wrapping a bouquet of lilies. Calm, steady. You think this makes you powerful? He sneered. You were just a helper. My mom was his real wife. You were convenient. His words didn't sting the way they used to. They sounded like echoes from a drowning man, loud, wild, and desperate. Before I could respond, Amaka emerged from the back room, eyes cold and voice like steel. Say one more word, and I'm calling the police. Say scoffed, looked at her, then at me. Then, in one last act of childish spite, he spat on the floor and stormed out. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I simply reached for the broom and swept the spit out the door like dust. Amaka touched my shoulder. You okay? That was his tantrum, not my burden. I replied. That night, I sat on the guest room floor, flipping through an old photo album. Pictures from before the accident, before the silence, before the erasure. One photo caught my eye. AO and I standing outside a music festival, both smiling. But even in that photo, I saw it now. I had been holding everything up. His arm, his posture, even his joy. I closed the album gently. Some memories are allowed to fade. The next morning, I started writing again. For the first time in years, the words flowed like breath. I titled the essay, "What Care Costs When It Isn't Reciprocated." I submitted it to a small women's blog. Within days, it went viral. Comments poured in from women across the country, nurses, teachers, full-time mothers. One wrote, "You put into words what I've been too scared to say. Thank you." And just like that, I realized I hadn't just escaped something toxic. I had stepped into something true. It came on a Tuesday afternoon, tucked in a plain brown envelope, and delivered by a courier with tired eyes. Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Urgent. The letter said AO had been admitted 2 nights earlier after suffering a hypertensive crisis and a mild cardiac arrest. His emergency contact form listed no next of kin. The space where a legal guardian's name should have been was blank. I stood in the middle of Amaka's flower shop, the letter trembling in my hands. But my heart? Still, no panic, no guilt, no instinct to run to him. Just stillness. I walked to the back patio and called Barrister Ifioma. "Please transfer all health decisions to Say. He's the biological child. Let him carry what belongs to him." She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Understood, I'll handle it." Later that evening, a nurse who knew Amaka from church sent a quiet text. "Say he hasn't shown up. Says he's too busy with work. Nobody else has visited either." I read that message twice. AO, the man who once ruled his home like a king, now lay in a hospital ward, alone, quiet, and forgotten. He had built his world on control, entitlement, and silence. But in the end, silence was all he had left. Meanwhile, I was building something else. The blog essay had gone viral. More than 4,000 reads. Dozens of messages from women who had been wives, caregivers, girlfriends. Unseen, unheard, unpaid. I launched a small newsletter called Unkept Vows. My first post was titled, "From Being Needed to Being Seen." It was about the cost of shrinking yourself inside someone else's comfort zone, and the healing that begins when you finally choose your own name. Sandra, my cousin, visited the flower shop that week and brought me a gift, a small brass plaque engraved with, "This space belongs to Amaka." We hung it right above the shelf in the kitchenette, where I kept my herbal teas and old cookbooks. Later that night, I sat on the patio, sipping warm ginger tea. The wind rustled through the petals like a hymn. AO hadn't called. Say he hadn't reached out again. It was done, not bitter, not triumphant, just complete. I wasn't anyone's house girl anymore. I was my own woman. Summer rolled in like soft breath, and for the first time in years, my mornings belonged to me. I woke up early, stretched slowly, and made breakfast, not to serve someone, but to nourish myself. Some days it was pap and akra. Other days, just toast and honey tea. Small rituals, quiet joys. I was rebuilding not just my life, but my identity. I enrolled in an online editing course. Started working remotely for a small publishing startup that needed proofreaders. Every invoice had my name. Every login password was mine. It felt strange, having ownership, but good. Once a week, I joined a writing group at the local library. We read essays and told our truths. My first piece of the group was titled "The Cost of Loyalty Without Reciprocity." A woman across the room teared up as I read. Afterward, she whispered, "You made me feel seen." That moment felt bigger than applause. One afternoon, while repotting roses in the shop's back patio, a courier brought another letter, this time from a hospital. It read, "Your name has been removed from all emergency contact records. No further action required." I folded the letter once, then again, and placed it in the drawer under my journal. That was the final thread. The last door closed without a bang. Just a click. That weekend, I painted the guest room in soft amber. I placed a brass plaque from Sandra above the door. I lit a eucalyptus candle and played Femi Lay's guitar instrumentals on low volume. It didn't feel like a guest room anymore. It felt like home. At a small women's conference hosted by Second Sunrise, I stood on stage and told my story. Not just the pain, but the rebuilding. Not just the betrayal, but the rebirth. When I finished, women stood. Some nodded, some cried. One woman hugged me tightly and whispered, "You gave me the courage to walk away too." That night, I sat outside with Amaka as the petals swayed in the wind and the moon watched quietly. "You didn't just leave a marriage," she said. "You reclaimed your name." I smiled, and this is only chapter 1. Because I wasn't someone's helper anymore. I was a woman who remembered her voice. And now, I write my own story, one bloom at a time.